Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. This goes back to around 2022. I, a 14-year-old female, was a Valorant addict and I would play for hours. I wouldn't normally use my mic because I had social anxiety, and also Valorant gamers are really weird with females. I had met this guy who was pretty chill though. He invited me to queue up with his friends, one girl and one guy, and I accepted. His friend was super sweet and funny, and we got along pretty well, so I decided to add him as a friend. We started playing some matches from time to time, and we exchanged Discords. We started talking more and more, and I did eventually get attached. I could tell that he was really into me. He would praise and text me a lot, and a few months passed. We then exchanged Instagrams and we started messaging each other. Throughout all of this, we hadn't established if we were friends or more. We would flirt occasionally, but it wouldn't go further than that. One day, he asked for my Snapchat. I agreed, even though I was sort of suspicious. Men on Snapchat? I know where that leads, but I didn't really mind it, since I did kind of like him. Things did turn sexual after a few days, and he would send me pictures and videos. I didn't send anything back, but I would entertain it, and that was mistake number 1. Maybe 6 months, a year after we initially met, so end of 2023, I, 15 already, told him that I didn't want anything serious, no relationship, but we could be friends with benefits. He enthusiastically agreed, and I ended up sending him pictures. And that's mistake number 2. I really thought that I was safe because it was on Snapchat, and you can see if they screenshot. A few weeks passed and I realized that I never did see his face, and I knew almost nothing about him. I started asking more about him, found out his name is Joshua and lives in Florida. He has multiple mental illnesses and he has trouble with the police before. He showed me his face and I realized how deep in shit I was, and I started texting him less and less, which infuriated him. And at some point, I decided to officially cut him off. I tried to do it as politely as I could, and I blocked him, and I thought that was it. Beginning of 2024, I received a text from my sister. "Hey, who's Josh?" And I felt my knees weaken and my stomach drop. I asked her why, and she told me that she would tell me when she gets home. When she finally arrived, I was already waiting for her in the kitchen, and she gave me this look. I started crying and then she hugged me. He sent her my pictures and threatened to leak them. I had no choice but to talk about it with my mom, and she told me that we should go to the police. I agreed, and then we went to the police station, where they told me that they would send officers at my house and that they would take my phone and talk to me and my sister. It kind of dawned on me that this was really serious, and I got scared, so I backed out, which is mistake number 3. Maybe a month or 2 later, Josh's brother texted me asking me to unblock him. We texted a bit and he told me that Josh would often sell nudes to pedophiles on Telegram. I realized how deep in shit I was, but I was still too scared to speak up, and I really should have. Josh texted my friend's boyfriend, and no idea how he found him, and started telling him how I was horrible and asking him if he wanted my nudes. A few months later, he texted my then boyfriend telling him the same thing, but threatening to send him my nudes if I wouldn't talk to him. So I unblocked him. Mistake number 4. I didn't lead him on. I told him to back off and leave me alone. that I would go to the cops, and then he told me, and I quote, "That would just show me how much you love me." And I obviously reblocked him. I since then every few months get a Snapchat or Instagram request from him. I would sometimes accept it, and I would tell him to back off again, telling him that I don't love him. I tried to find out his last name, and I remembered his brother that texted me. I texted him and asked him what was Josh's last name. He denied knowing me and knowing Josh. I sent him a screenshot of him a few months earlier talking to me about him, and he just ignored me. I'm wondering if there's anything I could do. I feel like I can't escape him wherever I go. I turned most of my accounts private because of him, and I have trouble trusting people now. I feel like I'm always just waiting for him to reappear. A few years ago, I was a university student renting a house with 3 friends on a quiet street in what's considered one of the safer, more privileged cities in the UK. I'd never heard of anything strange happening in the area. To help pay for tuition and rent, which was expensive, I worked late evening shifts at an ASDA, which closed at midnight. My shift usually ended at around 12:30 or 1 a.m., so I would often cycle home at weird hours, but nothing ever happened. My housemates, who I met through uni, were a year ahead of me and graduated and already busy with work. By the time that I get home, they are usually asleep, so the house was quiet when I got back. One winter night after a long shift, I was cycling home in the freezing cold. I was exhausted and I was moving slowly, which probably made me pretty quiet on the road. As I turned into the street where our house was, we lived at the far end, I noticed someone standing directly in front of our door. It wasn't one of my housemates. This guy was bald, and none of the people that I lived with were. He was just standing there, just still, facing the door, not knocking, not moving, not talking, just staring straight ahead. Our door did not have anything, no glass, no peephole, nothing. I slowed and I instinctively turned around before he could notice me. Something about it felt off. I circled a few nearby streets trying to think of what to do. I was too scared to go back, so I started calling my housemates but no answer. I texted a few friends too, hoping that someone might still be awake, but nothing. I could see my breath in the cold and my fingers were freezing around the handle of the bike. I kept cycling in better lit areas where there were still the occasional cars driving by, and being near movement felt safer. Eventually, I calmed down a bit, but I was drained. I had worked 12 hours, but it was nearly 3 a.m., and my phone battery was low, and I just wanted to go home. So I cycled back and I turned into the street again, and he was still there, same position, just staring at the door. I turned around and I went back to the main road. By now, it was even quieter. This was when I had a full-blown panic attack. I didn't know what to do anymore, and for some reason, don't ask me why, I never called the police. I really don't know why. I think I just froze. Eventually, one of my friends that I had messaged earlier replied, and they were still up. I asked if I could come to theirs, and thankfully, they said yes. It took a while to get there, but I finally made it by 4 a.m. I was beyond tired, but I was safe. I guess he eventually left, as the morning after, none of my housemates noticed anything. So to the bald guy staring at my door in the middle of the night, let's not meet again. I like doing my grocery shopping early at Kroger to avoid long lines and crowds. This past Saturday morning, as I was leaving the produce section, I noticed a frail middle-aged woman with no cart, arms crossed, walking past me. She didn't appear homeless, so I assumed she might just be grabbing a few small items. But as I moved to the meat section, I noticed her walking behind me, and something felt off. To test it, I turned down another aisle and she followed. I stopped at the beginning to let her pass, and she awkwardly paused and then walked by me and pretended to look for something before leaving the aisle empty-handed. And that confirmed my suspicion that she was following me. And later, I spotted her again on the other side of the store, still with nothing in her hands. She followed me briefly again and then completely disappeared. I got on the phone with my partner to let someone know what was happening just in case. I even said out loud, "You know when you feel like you're being followed?" And a man nearby turned around to look at me. Later at self-checkout, I saw that same man again. He looked right at me, asking the employee something, then left the store without buying anything. Now I wonder if he and the woman might have been connected, maybe watching or scouting me. It was a very strange experience, so it's just a reminder to stay alert and trust your instincts. For 4 years, Beverly and I had what I believed was an ideal relationship. I remember our first meeting vividly, as if it just happened yesterday. We met through mutual friends at a small party. She was 26 and full of life, with a laugh that could light up the room. I was 28, feeling like I had finally found someone who understood me. We clicked instantly, and our relationship blossomed quickly from innocent dates to talking about our future together. Beverly and I were good for each other. We encouraged each other to pursue our dreams, to stay healthy, to be the best versions of ourselves. She would cook my favorite meals when I had a tough day at work, and I would surprise her with little gifts and spontaneous trips. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but we always found our way back to each other. Or so I thought. One Saturday morning, I was in the living room while Beverly was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, and without thinking much of it, I glanced over. A message notification popped up from someone named Gym Instructor. It wasn't the name that caught my attention, but the content of the message. It was flirty, suggestive, something that a gym instructor shouldn't be sending if it were simply professional. My heart sank. It never even crossed my mind that something like this could be happening behind my back. I was heartbroken. I confronted Beverly that same day when she got out of the shower. At first, she denied everything, claiming that it was just a misunderstanding. But as the argument escalated, she finally confessed. She had been cheating on me for months. This betrayal really cut deep. Our breakup was nasty. It was filled with angry words and broken promises, and I moved out that very week and cut all contact with her. It was actually easier than I thought, severing ties with someone who had caused me so much pain. That was definitely a painful experience, but that's not why I'm posting the story on here. It's something more unhinged that happened afterwards, but I thought that I would give you a background first so you would understand the story better. A year passed, and I started to rebuild my life. I met a girl named Jenny, and she was a breath of fresh air. We hit it off from the start and soon began going on dates. I didn't want to jump right into a relationship because I feel like I still had some doubts and trauma, especially from what happened with Beverly. But Jenny was everything that I needed. She was kind, loving, and honest. Our relationship felt so natural that after a few months of going out on dates, I finally asked her, and she said yes. We decided to make it official. So, I posted a picture of us together on social media, announcing to the world that I had moved on and found happiness again. Perfect ending, right? Nope. The very next day, Beverly sent me a message on Instagram. She berated me for moving on so quickly, as if she had any right to control my life. I was furious, and I reminded her of the reasons for our breakup. It had been a year since we ended things because she had cheated on me. I told her that she had no right to interfere in my life anymore, and then I blocked her. I thought that that would be the end of it, but Beverly was relentless. She tried to contact me in different social medias and I blocked her on there too. She then started creating multiple fake social media accounts just to get in contact with me, and every single time I blocked her, thinking that she would eventually get the message and just leave me alone. She also sent me an email, which something that I forgot about, and I blocked her on there too. One evening, Jenny received a message from Beverly. She was confused and worried when she told me about it. I do understand that it was easy for Beverly to find Jenny online because she was all over on my page. I explained my past with Beverly and what has been going on recently. I didn't want to keep Jenny in the dark. We agreed to block Beverly from all social media platforms and hoped that that would be the end of her attempts to reach out to us. We just wanted to focus on our relationship without any distractions from my past. But as you already know, Beverly didn't stop there. The next day, she showed up at my workplace demanding to speak with me. I refused to see her and she was eventually escorted out. It was so unsettling to think that she knew where I worked and was willing to come there uninvited. From that point on, I started seeing her everywhere. She would appear across the street when I was out with Jenny, or I would catch a glimpse of her at the grocery store. It felt like she was haunting me, just unwilling to let go. One day, I found a letter in my mailbox. Of course, it was from Beverly, filled with pleas for a second chance and all her declarations of love for me. I didn't respond and I just threw it away. But things escalated when one night there was a loud banging on my door. I looked through the peephole and I saw Beverly standing there. She looked disheveled and desperate, asking to be let in. I spoke to her through the door, telling her that nothing would change if we talked, and that I did not love her anymore and that we had been done for a year. I told her that she needed to move on, and that I would call the police if she didn't leave. Beverly pleaded for a second chance, but I was firm. I told her that if she ever bothered me or Jenny again, we would involve the police. Luckily, that finally made her leave. I watched through the window as she walked away, hoping that it would be the last time that I would see her. A week has passed since that night, and Beverly hasn't shown herself or tried contacting me. I hope it really stays that way. I want to move on with my life, to build something meaningful with Jenny without the shadow of Beverly hanging over us. It's strange how someone who once made you feel so loved can become the source of your nightmares. Let this be a reminder to everyone. If someone shows you who they truly are, believe them the first time. It could save you from a lot of pain and turmoil. Beverly may have been a significant part of my past, but she has no place in my future. I hope for her sake and mine that she learns to let go and finds peace. Sometimes, moving on isn't just about finding a new love. It's about reclaiming your life from the ghosts of the past. And I've learned that the hard way. And I sincerely hope that we never meet again, Beverly. Hi. This story is pretty long and is also probably not as interesting as the other stuff that's posted on here. But when I was a little girl, I'm 18 now, I had this friend called Harry. We met through school, but our dads worked together. My dad got his apprenticeship through his dad and made our families close friends. Harry occasionally had days where he would be completely different from the kid that I knew, and I mean screaming, flipping tables, and many more in school, which was later found out to be a mix of autism and ADHD. And luckily for me and him, as well as a few of my old friends, he got that kind of mix that made him overly creepy and violent, even in the present if he didn't get what he wanted. But I only found this out in year 10 of school. When we were pretty young, I think around year 4 in school, I was told never to go near him by my parents. I later found out that it was because of his mother being overly obsessive and stalkish to my dad. She managed to get my dad fired by Harry's dad because she went through my dad's personal messages and DMs on his laptop during his lunchtime, and she found my dad and mom's personal messages. God knows what she saw in there, but I know she found my dad saying that he didn't enjoy working with Harry's dad. Unknown to her, it was because of the lack of clients that my dad got and not because of Harry's family. But this was enough for her to screenshot and then send it to her husband, Harry's dad, a client and my dad, and worded the messages out to make my dad sound like a horrible person. So, this resulted in my dad losing his job and then moving his work to East Bay. I didn't talk to Harry for about a year after that, which is why I think it was around year 4 when that went down. But in year 6 of school, age 10 to 11, I found myself in a very close trio friend group with him and his best friend Isaac. I grew a crush on Isaac, and later on, we began dating, with Isaac's confession happening with Harry right next to us as we walked the marathon on our school's field. We spent every day at the park nearby playing manhunt and many more, and it was great. But in year 7, going into our teenage years, we completely grew apart. Harry moved schools for a couple of years and came back in year 9. But I never really saw him around at school at all, and I never talked to him, and me and Isaac eventually broke up in year 7, causing us to lose contact fully. The next time that I talked to Harry that I remember was during my year 10. I was the teacher's assistant to a group of kids, and he was helping with fitness, so we came across each other during the kids' physical education class. We briefly caught up, and I was unfortunately in the I'll have a crush on the first person who pays me attention kind of phase. So for a brief moment, I thought that I liked him, but the feelings very quickly left when I found out that he was with one of my friends at that time. We then didn't speak again for a long time until him and my friend broke up, where she warned me about him. She told me that he had my profile pictures on WhatsApp and Instagram screenshotted, which she excused by saying that his power and volume buttons were easy to press and he often took accidental screenshots. And then he would leave the moment my friend asked him why he even pressed on my picture in the first place. At first, she thought he was cheating on her with me, which explained why she previously completely distanced herself from me. But I showed her mine and Harry's messages, showing our last conversation being in the summer holidays before year 7, and she thankfully believed me. She told me that he likely had something for me, and if he asked me out, to say no immediately, with the reason that he often keeps pushing for every little thing, and that the rumors were true. There were many rumors about him doing unbelievable things to people, which I won't go into detail about. For example, if someone said, "No, I can't hang out today," he would just turn up at their house trying to hang out with you because he added it to his schedule, and many other things which I can't mention on here. But basically, he doesn't believe in consent in most situations. he would pressure you in order to get what he wants. And thankfully, my friend got out in time, and we all collectively helped her through the messy breakup. At that time, I fully listened to my friend, but the conversation quickly left my mind as time passed. It was only until we had finished our GCSEs and we were starting out in college that he tried to reach out to me through Instagram since our numbers had changed. I unfortunately don't have the conversation anymore. I just looked for it and it was gone. But he started by telling me that he had a massive crush on me when I was in year 8, which already made me uncomfortable. But we moved the conversation to Snapchat since he added me somehow by search mid-conversation. I wish I took pictures of my screen, but he said very creepy things about how I looked, and it wasn't like overly mature, but just the random, "You're so pretty," which was enough to make me want to leave the conversation. He went into more detail saying that he had a massive crush on me in year 10 and 11 when he was still with my friend. He eventually asked me out with another wave of compliments, and before I could even reply, he messaged me again asking if I got on a certain bus number that got into college at that time. Since he lived nearby, I figured that he just saw me on it, and so I said yes. I also asked if he goes to college in the area, which he said yes, but then proceeded to tell me how he always saw me sitting at the back right seat that was one row in front of the back of the bus and that he was too shy to say hi. I found this very creepy too, since I had never seen him once on the bus, and he was the type of guy that you can easily recognize. He was the type of guy that you would see at every anime convention with the fake katanas and etc. My seat allowed me to see everyone that got on the bus, and everyone sat behind me as I walked up to the seat and I never saw him, which made me feel like he was behind me the whole time. I spent the rest of my college years feeling like he was sat behind me watching me when I couldn't see him. Every time that I got on the bus, I would actively look out for him, but I never saw him. A few times, I would see his Snapchat start to message, but when I looked around me, it would stop and I would never see him on the bus. There was even a few times where he would say, "You're on your way to college," or "You look good today, I saw you on the bus." But when I would look around, he wasn't there, and I was the type of person who would look out the windows the whole journey, so I know that he wasn't outside. He eventually confessed his love again and I rejected him, telling him that I was only looking for women. I wasn't aware that I was lesbian at that time. And months later, he tried again pulling the same creepy messages, but getting more forward with every attempt, which this time I told him that I wasn't into him. He then tried again a month later, in which I told him that I was gay to see if it would stop him. Spoiler, it didn't, because he tried again a few weeks later. And that time, I told him that I liked someone, and that's when he started getting more violent. He tried one more time, in which I told him that I was in a relationship. The part that got violent with these constant messages was his responses to my rejections. The first time I rejected him, he sent me a photo of him crying. The second, he put the, okay. The third time he left me on red. The fourth time he snapped and then wrote, for fuck's sake, and didn't message me again for a while. And the last one, I quickly asked if he had found anyone, of which he said not yet, and we just left it there. Time went by and I didn't hear from him. I finished college and I started working full-time with my brother, who is now my manager. When Harry walked in late evening, getting an energy drink and some crisp. Instead of using our 4 self-services, he came up to me at the till, and he was the Harry that I knew. And I don't mean the violent, creepy one. I mean the casual, genuine guy that I once knew, and I reintroduced him to my brother since he knew of his family but didn't completely know Harry. During my break later that shift, Harry messaged me on Instagram again. It was the usual, "It was nice to see you again." And then he started talking about catching up, which I wasn't entirely happy about. The last thing that I want is me alone with him when I know he can't control himself after a drink or anytime past 8 p.m. So I just agreed but didn't proceed with it. I just said, "Yeah, we should," but didn't actually try to make a plan. The next day, we talked about our upcoming exam results that happened a few days ago and where we were individually going after class. I mentioned that I had work so I might buy myself a little something, just some casual small talk, when he hit me with a, "Also, to be fair with you, I really liked you when you were going out with Isaac." And he said that word for word. And when I acted surprised, he texted again saying, "Yeah, it was like a massive one too." I didn't know what to say, so I just left him on read, and I haven't heard from him since. Even though it's only been a week, I know he will probably try again. Unfortunately, he has all my socials, multiple different cosplay accounts on social media, and he knows where I work or live, and we live very near to each other. So blocking him would only result in him trying to see me at work or somewhere in person. I'd much rather keep him on the screen than progress into in person since he's much more unpredictable. But I often find him stalking my accounts every night at around 10 p.m., which is the time that he sent all of those confessions. I know he will try again since nothing seems to get by him. I'm just thankful that I have my older brother at my work to keep me safe, just in case he showed his true colors at my work. Also, just to clarify, around 3/4 of this happened in person, and the other quarter happened online. So, to my very creepy childhood friend, for the love of God, let's not meet ever again. This is a story from when I was in 8th grade, or around that time. Honestly, I feel a bit stupid bringing it up here, but I have never told anyone, not family, not friends, and I just want to let it out somewhere. Up until high school, I usually went home with my friend, me walking and her trotting alongside on her bike. The walk home from school was in a relatively safe area. It was surrounded by other schools, supermarkets, churches, and little houses, so I never felt unsafe during that 10-minute walk. Not even on that one particular day when my friend had to ride ahead and I was left walking home alone. About halfway through my usual route, I suddenly had this unsettling feeling, like someone was watching me. I turned my head toward the street next to me, and I saw a car driving noticeably slower than it should have been. I actually looked it up on Google Maps out of curiosity, and the speed limit on that street was 30 kilometers per hour. But this car was moving so slowly that it looked like it was floating, like it was trying to match my pace. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, as I mentioned, there were schools and even a kindergarten in the area. I just assumed that it was a parent looking for a parking spot to pick up their kid. But things started to feel a bit creepy when the driver's window rolled down and the man behind the wheel looked directly at me. My memory of that moment has grown a bit fuzzy over time, but what I remember clearly is a man with short dark hair and an unsettling wide smile. It's that smile that stuck in my memory the most. It didn't fade for a second. The situation was bizarre and I couldn't fully process what was happening. So I just turned my head and I looked straight ahead. But to my shock, he kept staring. That same horrifying twisted smile plastered across his face, and he continued creeping along next to me, not speeding up at all. It felt like an eternity, and I didn't know what to do. Everything about the situation felt so surreal. I looked around to see if maybe he was looking at someone else, or if anyone else noticed how creepy this was. But I remember people just walking by normally, as if nothing strange was happening. My only comfort was that people were around at all, because by that point, I was getting genuinely scared and still struggling to register what was happening. I even thought about calling out to some guy walking in front of me, but I was too shy to say anything. Out of curiosity and fear, I started walking even slower. I could have sworn that I saw a flicker of disappointment on his face before he finally drove away. It all felt like a nightmare. I felt relieved watching the car disappear down the road. But then, as I reached the crossroad that led to the street that I lived on, he appeared again. He was back, driving just as slowly, window down. That same grotesque, unnatural smile stretched across his face. At that point, I was so stunned that I froze for a moment and I looked directly at him. I was trying to convince myself this was really happening and not something that I was making up. Maybe he was someone I knew, a friend from my parents, an old teacher trying to say hello. But no, this was real. This man was practically twisting his entire upper body to look at me through the car window, and I didn't know him. That smile was still unbearably creepy, and I had no idea what he wanted. Even worse, I realized something. From the direction he was now coming from, he must have driven in a circle around the block just to appear again on the street that I was about to enter. The street where I lived, my home, was only a minute away. He was still driving well below 30 kilometers per hour, still saying nothing, still staring. As I stood there, trying to comprehend how real and dangerous this was, I felt a wave of fear wash over me. This creep could be trying to figure out where I lived. The street was lined with houses, but there wasn't a single other person around. Just him and me. All I wanted was for this nightmare to end. It was just the way he wasn't saying anything, just looking into my face, that scared the hell out of me. Thankfully, he never stopped the car completely. He just kept creeping along slowly. And eventually, he drove past far enough that I could finally cross the street. And at that point, I couldn't care about anything else. I told myself that if he came near me again, I would scream. I just ran straight home, and even while running, I could swear that he was still twisting his body to keep his eyes on me, still smiling that awful smile as he drove away. I was genuinely terrified, and this incident traumatized me. I knew that I hadn't imagined it. I kept checking, kept thinking about it over and over and over again. I was so scared that he would figure out where I lived that I refused to go to school or leave the house for days. I remained on edge for weeks, always half expecting him to show up again. I've thought about this moment so many times. Did he know me? Then why didn't he say anything? Why did he just smile like that? I even felt ashamed for wearing a skirt that day, thinking maybe it was just some creep lurking around. But no matter what, the whole situation was terrifying. And now I'm an adult, still living with my parents in the same place, though I have no reason to walk that old route anymore. I've never seen that man again, and I have never experienced anything as creepy or strange as that day. All that's been haunting me is his creepy smile and how I will never quite understand how this horror movie story actually happened to me. I never told my parents or my friends, especially not my mom. She's always been very overprotective, and I knew that if I told her, she'd probably have started walking me to school again like I was a kindergartner. And my friends back then probably wouldn't have believed me anyway. So now that I've finally gotten this off my chest, creepy car guy, I'm glad that I never saw you again, and I hope that it stays that way. I genuinely hope that you never do this or something worse to any other kid, ever. And here's the riddle for this video. Hey everyone, this is your creepy sister. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps the channel out. A big shout out to both my channel members and Patreon members. Thank you so much for taking your support to the next level. You guys are great. And again, to everyone, stay scared because your fear feeds me.